What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that's the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does, that helps make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get the notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and yourself a favor by hitting the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on social media platforms to your family and friends to inform them on this news and information. And yes, that does help to give me a slight boost in the YouTube algorithm as well. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we have to discuss a recent report coming out of CNN in which they explain that the Harris campaign is in full-blown panic mode, having flashbacks of 2016. And we all know what happened in 2016. All of the mainstream media DNC outlets swore up and down that Hillary Clinton had the election in the bag versus Donald Trump. And that was far from the truth. And when you consider the fact that Kamala Harris is currently polling worse than Hillary Clinton was in 2016, that spells landslide. That's what that spells out. What I want to do first right now is get into this quick CNN clip, and then I want to follow up with a clip from Theo podcast in which he had the president of the Teamsters union on, in which he himself stated one of the reasons that they have not endorsed Kamala Harris, which is the first time that the Teamsters have not endorsed a Democratic candidate in, I believe, 30 years, is because over the last 30 years, they've been throwing their support behind the DNC only to get effed. But we're going to get into that later. Let's jump into Kamala Harris's campaign being in panic mode as reported by CNN now.
We have some new CNN reporting today about what is going on behind the scenes inside the Harris campaign and more broadly among Democrats who are growing more and more anxious about a 2016 redux. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez joins me now. Priscilla, we were just joking here at the table that anxious Democrats happen on a day that ends in Y, but this is something that perhaps is warranted given the data that they're seeing. Explain your great reporting.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right, Dana. And this has been a campaign that was described by multiple Democrats, allies, aides, to the vice president as a good vibes campaign. But what's also creeping in now is that anxiety. The reason for that is because these polls are not really moving. Despite multiple battleground blitzes, despite the opportunities she has had across media outlets, there is still not a lot of movement from voters who are moving more towards her versus former President Donald Trump. In fact, I had one source describe it to me this way, quote, "People are nervous. They know the polls are tight. And a lot of us are having these flashbacks to 2016, too. We know when it can go the wrong way and it can still feel fresh." So 2016 is the key here. When I've talked to Harris campaign officials, it often comes up in conversation. Where did Hillary Clinton have her pitfalls? And where can they make up that ground and build on what Joe Biden did in 2020?
Now, as we can see here and as they're reporting, all of the pampering that Kamala Harris has received up until this point from the mainstream media press, all of the favoritism as it pertains to the ABC debate with her versus Donald Trump, and then the CBS debate with JD Vance versus Tim Walz, none of this stuff has worked. None of the scripted interviews, none of the attempts at even the unscripted interview recently on 60 Minutes, which was highly edited, but Kamala still came out looking bad in that. None of this stuff has been successful in pushing the ball forward for Kamala Harris. If anything, she's stagnant at best, but actually regressing and going backwards, which is something that they don't want to say on CNN. And one of the things that you will notice that no one talks about, or at least they try to keep it down to a minimum as possible, is where Kamala Harris is stagnant at best, but realistically regressing and going backwards. Donald Trump is actually moving forward. They don't like to talk about his gains with the Black community. They don't like to talk about his gains with the Hispanic community. They don't like to talk about his gains with union workers. They don't like to talk about any of Donald Trump's gains at all, who has been actually progressing forward. They keep any conversation about him moving forward to a minimum, if not completely silent, while pretending that Kamala Harris is mainly stagnant when she's moving backwards. Now, one of the key issues that she's having right now, and that the DNC is facing overall, is that a lot of people are waking up to the fact and the reality that they've been voting blue no matter who, to no avail. This is one of the largest and biggest criticisms of the Black community. One of the things that I've always been hammering away on, how voting blue is a religion in the Black community. But for many outside of the Black community, that has also been the case. And we're going to see that here with the union president as he discusses this concerning why he hasn't endorsed Kamala Harris, how he feels about the DNC, and how he himself is going to say, listen, man, we've been getting behind these folks for 30 plus years, and they've been effing us this whole time. Now, I do want to preface this by saying there is strong language. He is going to say the F word. So if you have children present or if you're at work, you might want to turn it down or maybe mute this portion, at least when he says the F words. But I'm just giving you a fair warning. Now, let's get into this clip right here.
I'm a Democrat.
Rewind it back just a little bit.
I'll be honest with you. I'm a Democrat, but they have fucked us over for the last 40 years. And for once, and not all of them, but for once, we're standing up as a union, probably the only one right now, saying, what the fuck have you done for us?
Yeah.
And I'm getting attacked from the left, you know, and we've given, since I've been in office 2.5 years, we've given the Democratic machine $15.7 million. We've given Republicans about 340,000. Truth be told. So it's like, you know, people say the Democratic Party is the party of the working people. They're bought and paid for by big tech. Those big tech companies.
Yeah, tech.
They're bought and paid for by big tech. The DNC is the party of the people. That's what you've been sold on. That's how they promote themselves. But that's always the farthest thing from the truth. People have been voting blue no matter who, to no avail, just to see over the course of 30 years when we're talking about the Teamsters union president, or if you're even talking about the Black community has been voting blue no matter who since 1964. You're talking about close to, or not even close to, I think at this point, over half a century now. I think we're at that over half a century mark. For over half a century, 50 plus years, if not going on 60 now, voting blue no matter who, just to receive no genuine tangible changes. And people are finally, it appears to some degree, waking up to that. But sticking with the union and sticking with polling and how horrible Kamala Harris is doing, they're saying that Kamala Harris's team is having flashbacks of 2016. I don't know how you can have flashbacks of 2016 when you're doing worse than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. Sticking with the unions, let's go to the CNN clip here so we can see how Kamala Harris is actually polling amongst union households. Let's check this out right now.
Kamala Harris is today. She's only leading by 9 points. That would be the worst Democratic performance in a generation.
The worst Democratic performance in a generation. I'm going to let it play. I rewind it back. Union households. What does that say? Democrat margin. Union households, Democrats margin. We see November of 1992, Bill Clinton, 30 plus points or plus 30 points. Hillary Clinton, plus 12 points. Joe Biden, plus 19 points. And you have Kamala Harris here with a measly plus 9 points. How can you be having flashbacks of 2016 when you're performing worse than Hillary Clinton? That's my question.
But look at where Kamala Harris is today. She's only leading by 9 points. That would be the worst Democratic performance in a generation. 10 points off the mark of Joe Biden, who of course won 4 years ago, who was sort of that union guy, Union Joe, right? Won it by 19 points. She's 10 points off his mark, and the worst in a generation.
Nobody believes Kamala Harris. And it appears that to some degree, people are finally starting to see the Democrats for who they actually are. They talk a good game. They will entertain all of that people talk and union talk, worker talk, racism, white supremacy talk. But when it comes down to actual tangible changes that you can see in real life, not paper victories, not paper statistics where you're saying, oh, the Black community has been voting blue no matter who for 60 years to no avail, and you want to tell me, oh, that's not true, that's misinformation, and actually 10% this and 5% that and 6% this. That all sounds good when you're reading off statistics on a piece of paper, but when folks are looking outside of the window of their homes and they're tapping their pockets, they see no tangible benefit over voting blue for 30 years concerning union members and voting blue for 60 years concerning the Black community. Just take the last 4 years into account. Have we seen any real world changes in a positive direction that you can tangibly look at, feel, see, touch, and even concerning swiping your debit card and say, hey, things are great? No, but over the last 4 years, we have seen real world changes going in the opposite direction, in the negative direction. And that's what people are seeing and are clinging on to as true. Over the last 4 years, 3.5 technically, under Biden and Harris, under Democrats, to what degree has your life changed for the positive tangibly? Most of you can't answer that question. Most of you will say it has not. But what you have noticed, especially over the course of the last 4 years, is that things have changed for the worse, and you can see it and you can feel it. And that's what's important. People are seeing and feeling the negative impacts of a Harris-Biden campaign, of a Harris and Biden presidency. And that negative impact is something that you will continue to feel if Harris returns back into office. But whether or not she does or doesn't depends on you this November and not somebody else. So with all that being said, that does it for today's news. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. And also, don't forget to follow me on Telegram and Rumble. That is extremely important to follow me on Telegram and Rumble. The link to both are in my description box below and in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.